Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadhari Yasodhanandana Rajagara Ranjana Nandana Rajagara Ranjana Yasodhanandana Rajagara Ranjana Nandana Rajagara Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachadi Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadhari Vallabha Gopi Janavalabha Girivanadhari Janavalabha Girivanadhari Yasodhanandana Vrajagana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Vrajagana Ranjana Nandana Vrajagara Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Om Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Bhaktivacharya, Satarya Satyashishi Mad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Gauda Vaishnavinda Ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki, ISKCON founder Srila Prabhupada Ki, Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath, Shamakun, Radhakun, Giri Govardhan Ki, Vrindavan Dham Ki, Mayapur Dham Ki, Navadvip Dham Ki, Jamuna Mahi Ki, Ganga Mahi Ki, Tulsi Devi Ki, Bhakta Devi Ki, Shri Radha Golokananda Ki, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki, Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevayam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevayam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevayam. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, Chapter 51, Text 51. Nirjita Dik Chakram Abhuta Vrigraho Nirjitya Drik Chakram Abhuta Vrigraho Parasana Staha Sama Raja Vandita Varasana Sta Sama Raja Vandita Grihesu Mahihuyam Sukhesu Yositam Grehesu Grehesu Mahitunya Sukhesu Yositam Grida Mrigrahi Purusa Isa Niyate Gridad Mriga Purusa Isa Niyate Nirjita Driktaram Abhuta Virgraho Parasanasta Sama Rajavadita. Grahesu Maitunya Sukesu Yositam. Krida Mriga Purusa Isaniyate. Jitadrik Charam Abhuta Vigraho. Parasanasta Samarajavadita. Grahesu Mait Punya Sakesu Mos Yositam. Krita Mriga Purusa Isaniyate. Nirjita Drik Chakram Abhuta Vigraho. Varsana Staha Samarajavatita. Grihesu Maihunya Sukesu Yositam. Rida Mriga Purusa Isaniyate. All right. Abhuta Vigreha. Varsana Sa Samarajavatita. Grihesu Mahitunya Sukesu Yositam. Jita Tricharam Abhuta Vigraho. Varsana Staha Samarajavadita. Grihesu Maitunya Sukesu Yositam. Rida Mriga Purusa Isaniyate. Anybody else? Nirjita Drik Chakram Abhuta Vigraho. Rasanasta Samarajavatita. Grihesu Maitunya Sukesu Yositam. Vitad Mriga Purusa Isaniyate. Nirjita. Having conquered Ik of directions. Chakram. The whole circle. Abhuta. Non-existent. Vigrahaya. Vigraha. Any conflict for whom? Vara Asana. On the exalted throne. Staha. Seated. Sama. Equal. Raja. By kings. Vandita. Praised. Grihesu. In residences. Mahihunya. Sex. Sukhisu. Whose happiness? Yositam. Of women. Krida Mriga. A pet animal. Purusaha. The person. Isa. O Lord. Niyate is led about. Translation. Having conquered the entire circle of directions and being thus free from conflict, a man sits on a splendid throne, receiving praise from leaders who were once his equals. But when he enters the women's chambers, where sex pleasure is found, he is led about like a pet animal, O Lord. So please repeat. Having conquered the entire circle of directions, and thus being free of of conflict. Let's do that again. A man sits on a splendid throne, receiving praise from leaders who were once his equals. But when he enters the women's chambers, where sex pleasure is found, he is led about like a pet animal. O Lord. Okay, so we got, we're going to read the verses. We have a couple of short purports, none by Priyananda Goswami, but we'll have one by Vishwanath Chakravarti and one by Jiva's, very small commentaries. In the previous verse, it was stated that a person who achieved kingly status among his peers ends up as stool and worms by the force of time at the end of the life. This verse describes how during the present life, a person who achieves kingly status becomes a pet animal in the hands of women. Having freed himself of conflicts, he is worshipped by kings who were once his equals. He is made to move about like a pet animal in the inner chambers of women for sexual pleasure by those women or their servants. So Jiva Goswami, there's no happiness at death for a person who has lived a life of enjoyment. I mean, the more attachment you are, the more you'll suffer. Right? That's what it's saying. The more attached we are to anything, when it's time of death, the more we're going to suffer because we don't want to give it up, whatever it is. So this is what he's saying here. Even in being a king, with all enjoyment, one suffers because of dependence. This is explained in 2 verses. Though situated on a great throne, he is led by women, and even their female servants. Or this happens because they are all subject to your Maya. Om Aganda Timarandasha Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuromulitamyana Tajmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So these two, as he points out, these two verses are kind of connected. This one and the previous verse was done yesterday. Talks about how at the end of life, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Like in the Bible it says, you go back from dust we come, from dust we go back to. So this is the end result, the body. And because the point here is that you think this is you, but ultimately it's nothing but matter. So it's a product of matter, and it'll go back into matter. We see this with other people. Sometimes we don't see it in ourselves, but when somebody else dies, then we see the effects of that. And we can see, just oftentimes just skeletons, where everything else is gone. Skeletons typically the last thing to remain. It takes if almost a very long time for that to deteriorate. But so we have Muchakunda given his realizations about the life he's led. This is the end, he's still got some life left. Even though he has a very long duration of life, he was actually on the heavenly planets helping the demigods. And he wanted a nice place to sleep, so he came to Earth to get some peace and quiet. Of course, the Earth is not always as populated as it is today. The population actually is growing, continuously expanding. We have, 7 billion? I don't know the exact number, but it's quite a bit. And that's actually just like doubled in the last, 100 years. I mean, it's just really growing at a pretty fast rate. So when he, 5,000 years ago, just wanted to take some rest, it's the benediction he got from the demigods, they couldn't offer him liberation, it was described, because only the Supreme Personality of Godhead can offer liberation. So they gave him the best they could actually, he wanted. He wanted a break. He wanted to take some rest, And then, unfortunately, according for Kalyavana, who woke him up from that, he received this very harsh glance. And then, so at the end, Krishna tells, because of the life he led, he was a Kshatriya, many wars, this verse describes about how many wives, and even though they perform all these samskars and they do all these different, to counteract the sinful activities of doing these, Lord Krishna at the end tells them, you got to go and perform some austerity to counteract these sinful activities. This is the nature of, karma. I mean, he's engaged in all kinds of activity. Some of it religious, if you're fighting and killing for, to protect your society. If you're doing it like Hiranyakashipu, just to conquer and to dominate, it's a completely different reaction. But here, as a ruler, they're engaged in all types of activities. Primarily, it binds one to this material world because you're enjoying at one of the highest possible levels you can enjoy on. We see Indra is also a victim of this because he's on the topmost position in the heavenly planet. And he's always worried about who's going to take my position, right? So he was mentioned in this verse. He was equal with all these other kings, but now he's on the top. This is the situation. And then the mind starts to work you. So it's in the, what's this? Oh, I can't remember. It's the fourth canto where King Nemi performs a 100-year sacrifice. Who is, I can't remember the name. Maharaj Prithu. So he's the king, and in the Kirya they perform sacrifices for the benefit of society, benefit of him, benefit of the family, benefit for the kingdom, all these different samskars, constantly doing sacrifices to counteract Maya Devi, but in the material world, Maya Devi pretty much always wins. You're fighting a losing battle almost until Krishna shows up on the scene. It's a losing battle. So they're doing this 100 horse sacrifices. They kill the horse, but then they bring them back. And on the last horse, Indra's thinking, okay, now he's going to get more powerful than me. He's worried about his position. So he goes and steals the horse. So this disrupts the whole sacrifice. But he's thinking, okay, I got to protect my position. So he doesn't just do it once. They get the horse back and they get the sacrifice going again, and then he steals it a second time. And I don't know if he steals it a third time, but his son goes after him a third time. Maharaj Prithu's son. He's going to kill him. They've had enough of this stuff, He's going to kill Indra. And that's when he dresses up as a sannyasi, right? That's how he sneaks in. And they describe that's just really with the beginning of this, what makes sannyasis look bad. He was like one of the first one that, he makes a sannyas really, one of the first times a sannyas appears to be in a degraded position. But then Brahma steps in and said, you can't kill him. You can't live with him, but you can't kill him either. So this is all of us. Oftentimes we can't get along with somebody, but we have to make the best of the situation that's presented to us, whatever condition that we find ourselves in. We have to, and always the best rule that's given is humility. If we always take the humble position, it's so hard to deal with our mind sometimes to do that, but that's always the best course of action. Oftentimes it's not done. Actually, what they're going to do at one point, the Brahmin said, his son went and got to him the second time, and the third time the Brahmin said, we'll just kill them with a sound weapon. We'll just chant some mantras, direct it towards Indra, and that'll take care of that problem. And that's when Brahma stepped in and said, you can't kill him. So this is you've become so much puffed up. The bigger you are, the more proud you are. Pride comes before fall. So here we have Muchukunda, in a sense, in his retirement, lamenting over his condition, his realization that he is. So in the intro, it describes it. It said Muchukunda showed mercy to Lord Krishna, offered obeisance and circumambulated him. The king left the cave and saw the humans, animals, trees, and plants were all smaller than when he had fallen asleep. So he had been sleeping for a very long time. From this, he could understand the age of Kali was at hand. Thus, in the mood of detachment from all material association, the king began worshiping the Supreme Lord Hari. So this is the condition. Lord gives him instructions. He leaves, and he notices things are much different than. And so that from this, we can see how evolution actually plays, is explained here a little bit in Srimad Bhagavatam. We see evolution also as the soul transmigrates from one body to another to another. That's a type of evolution that we read about in the sages talk about. But here we see a type of evolution of humans themselves. Well, the difference is, where scientists talk about evolution, the problem is with their description of it is that it's described by atheists. That they take God out of the concept of evolution. When we read that, the 11th and 12th canto is going to be a description of what humans are going to look like, 300,000 years from now. What their stature is going to be, how they're going to be very short. And so we saw that there is this evolvement, but it's done if you understand it in relationship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and how things change over time. And so we even, there's descriptions of how tall Krishna was, and the Kshatriyas at that age, 5,000 years ago. There's an explanation of that. So here we have, and it talks about specifically one topic, two things. Once about his relationship with kings, how they're his friends, and now he's equal. At the same time, even though he's a huge ruler, and it doesn't matter how big a ruler you are, you're still victim by Maya Devi in the form of sex desire. And so Jiva Goswami, Maya Devi is just so strong. As I mentioned, you can't, it's almost, the only way we're going to win is by following the instructions that the Acharya has given us in a way in order we can overcome it. And ultimately, we understand that we can't win this battle, but if we surrender to Krishna, he can win the battle. He can win the battle. He can wipe out all of our past activities, which are accumulated for billions of lifetimes, and he can clean the slate. And from him, then liberation can be achieved. So it's described that, Prabhupada also said that devotees just don't have enough fear for Maya Devi. They don't have a healthy enough fear. And it's very important, that because the illusion, we become overcome. Well, first off, it's like Giriraj Swami approached, they were at Mangahela, and the devotees were getting up late, they were sleeping in, it was cold, they didn't want to get out of their sleeping bags. They're all they're in tents, because there's this big, maybe 12 years this thing happens. And so Giriraj Swami says, Prabhupada, sometimes I just fall into Maya. And Prabhupada said, well, you're always in Maya. Sometimes you fall into Krishna consciousness. And that's the reality of our situation, that we're constantly in Maya, and occasionally we'll fall into Krishna consciousness. That's why temple functions are so important. Chanting the fixed rounds is so important. That we do reading is so important, so that we can fall into Krishna consciousness at different times of the day. And the more we do those activities, the more why we surround ourselves with devotees so we can see a Vaishnava. Right? Lord Chaitanya says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he was asked who a Vaishnava is. He says, one who chants Hare Krishna is a Vaishnava. One who, if you look at that person, you think about Krishna, that's a Vaishnava. Right? So this is why association of devotees is so important. You see tilak on somebody, you think about Krishna. So these things, and you see someone's on neck beads, you think these things remind you about Krishna. You know? So even associates of Lord Chaitanya sometimes find themselves in trouble. This is how strong Maya Devi is. You know, we have the story of Krishna Das, who went to South India. He became a victim of a woman. But Lord Chaitanya felt that he was responsible for this person. He was in his party, he was traveling with him. So he goes to these, they're like gypsies, and he goes there to get Krishna Das back. Of course, it wasn't that easy. They wanted to attack Lord Chaitanya with weapons. The story is in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. But Lord Chaitanya don't pick up weapons and fight in Kali. His weapon is the Mahamantra. But the potency of, they all turned on each other. They all started to hit with their weapons. They started hitting each other with and hitting themselves with these weapons. So they wind up battling themselves when they started to attack Lord Chaitanya. So he grabs Krishna Das by the hair and he drags him back. But when they get back to South India, you know, he brings in Nityananda and says, you know, I'm back. I'm no longer responsible for him. And he kind of rejects him to a certain degree. But the devotees don't reject him. They're very merciful. Nityananda is very merciful, and they send him to Navadvip. They give him mercy. So then Brahmananda Bharati is another example. He's traveling with Lord Chaitanya to Vrindavan. And while they're in Vrindavan, they're going around to all these holy places. And so there's a story, starting to hear the story that the residents are seeing Krishna dancing on Kalia's lake, you know, on the Yamuna. So they keep hearing the story. So then one day, Brahmananda Bharati asked Lord Chaitanya for permission to go see Krishna dancing on Kalia's lake. This is very interesting. That this is, if you see, this is another thing that's really lost in culture. Lord Chaitanya wouldn't go on to Vrindavan unless he got the permission from the devotees. He didn't go to South India without their permission. He didn't even come to Jagannath Puri without the permission of his mother. So this is the culture. And similarly, the servants and the associates also ask permission before they do anything. And then similarly, the guru. You ask permission from the guru if you want to do something or engage. I can remember even when I was young, in our parents' house, I mean, even before you got out from the dinner table, you got asked to be excused. I mean, that just doesn't happen. I don't know if it happens anywhere. Maybe it does happen. I don't know if that ever happened to you, if you remember something like that. But that's how, just you ask permission if you can do anything, especially as a child anyway, you're a minor. So he asked Lord Chaitanya, may I go and see Kalia, Krishna dancing on the hoods of Kalia? And then Lord Chaitanya looks at him and he slaps him in the face. So you crazy? You know, you think it's that you can just go there and see Krishna? He kind of just like wakes him up a little bit. Pundarik Vijayanidhi also got slapped by Krishna and Balaram. This is the very last story in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. He was criticizing the starched cloth that the deities were given. There's a certain time of the year at Jagannath Puri where there's everything's something going on almost all the time. And this time they get very clean, fresh cloth and it's starched. They don't wash it. Typically they wash it and get the starch out. But he criticized the Brahmins for not clearing it. He was very good friends with Swarup Damodar. Those were very close. So in a dream that night, Krishna and Balaram, they come and they just slap Pundarik. What are you criticizing these Vaishnava devotees? So he wakes up and he's got his face swollen, but he's happy because the Lord has, corrected him, and he goes to Swarup Damodar. So Lord Chaitanya gives him a slap and wakes him up. And what it is there's a fisherman who's fishing on the Yamuna, and he's got a lamp. This lamp is to try to attract people. And so people are misunderstood because their senses are imperfect. They're seeing this for some reason that's at night, that Krishna's dancing on the hood of Kaliya. So it's this way, mild correction, very affectionate. Brahmananda Bharati went with Lord Chaitanya when he got sannyas. He also traveled with him when he went to Jagannath Puri. He didn't go with him to South India, but then he went with him to Vrindavan. They're very close associate of Lord Chaitanya. And then we have another example is Junior Haridas. Junior Haridas was considered one of the really nice kirtan leaders in Lord Chaitanya's party. He would really sing beautifully, and Lord Chaitanya would often ask him to lead kirtans and sing. But one day they were cooking, somebody was cooking, and they needed some rice, and this person asked Junior Haridas, goes to Sikhi Mahiti's sister and get some rice. Right? Wasn't even his idea. So he goes to Sikhi Mahiti's sister, and he begs some rice. And then Lord Chaitanya was eating, and then he said, well, where did this rice come from? And they said, well, it came from Sikhi Mahiti's sister. And so where did it, who got this rice? He already, he wanted to just bring this out. Well, Junior Haridas went and got the rice and begged the rice from. But he saw that there was something in Junior Haridas's mentality when he got this rice. He was some, there was some lust in his little bit. And Lord Chaitanya picked up on that because Junior Haridas was a sannyasi. He was in a renounced order of life. And so then he didn't want him, he rejected him as not being strict. So, of course, Junior Haridas was completely devastated by this. We see how Maya Devi is so strong that we're completely bound by her. Of course, later we know that Junior Haridas drowns himself. He jumps into the Yamuna at one point, or the Ganges at one point. The Lord never called him. After he drowns himself, then very soon, then Lord Chaitanya, because he's so merciful, tells Junior Haridas he can come back. But he had already. But then at night, Junior Haridas would come, because if you commit suicide, you get a ghost body. But at night, he would come and sing for Lord Chaitanya in his body and serve Lord Chaitanya that way. And so Mukunda was another one who, during the day at Navadvip, he would go out and he'd hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Mayavadis. And then at night he would come to Srivas' house and listen to kirtans and be a part of the whole kirtan with Lord Chaitanya. So there was this one time where there was this 21 hours of ecstasy, where Lord Chaitanya's experienced ecstasy. Typically when Lord Chaitanya, we read this, that he will, when he starts going into ecstasy, he'll go internal, and he won't, he'll just lose consciousness. But during this time, he didn't lose his consciousness, and he was given benedictions to all the different devotees there. But he never called Mukunda. And then the devotees said, well, you call Mukunda. You haven't given him benediction. But he said, Mukunda during the day beats me with a stick, and at night he comes and and he's treats me very nicely, talking about how he would listen to Mayavadis during the day, and he didn't. Said he's not going to get his mercy, his benediction. So Mukunda was first inside the house, but later he went out the house, and then he asked the devotees, go ask Lord Chaitanya when I will get his mercy. And they asked Lord Chaitanya, and Lord said, it would be for millions of years before he gets any of my mercy. You know. So they go back and tell him, and then he was happy. He was like jumping up in bliss, because he knew that one day he will get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Then when Lord Chaitanya heard his mood, he said, bring him in, and he bestowed his mercy. So we can see that how strong Maya is and how serious we have to constantly take it. And recognize that our condition is very treacherous. Prabhupada described it as being like living on a razor's edge as a Vaishnava. That any moment we can slip, and that could create havoc. So it's just a constant thing. Every day it's a new day. We have to put our foot forward. We have to be determined. We have to be patient to work through the obstacles that Mayadev throws at us at that particular day. And constantly remember that our only shelter is the association of devotees and the method of worship that was left behind by Srila Prabhupada. This is our only means of success. And their success, as Krishna says, is assured. In the introduction of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada talks about, Krishna says, surrender unto me. But he says, but Mayadevi is saying, no, you don't have to do that. Just surrender to me, you know. So there's this competition. So, anybody have any questions? I can read something else from Prabhupada's purport, from his introduction about this topic. So, I mean, of course, women are being described here as, in a sense, sexual objects. But how you deal with that is that, as a devotee, we see that all women should be looked at as your mother. Doesn't matter if your sister, your mother, every woman should be treated respectfully. Even though this is spoken by a man to a man on man, but Prabhupada also said, woman is also there. They're expressed in his own personal realizations about how degraded his life has become. So it's spoken that way. But we're taught how to respect everybody. So I don't know how much time left. I'll stop. Maybe I can read. I don't think we have much time. I was going to share something Prabhupada wrote in Adi Leela, but I don't think we have time. Okay. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Bhagom Vidamaniya Shesha Shobha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Asa Sakale Priya Priti Manti Vasyan Vipan Vikayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Nice special song. Oh yeah. You got luck.
What kids do you have issues with? Do you have anything?
I think it's this one is singing in
Vihabari Shishta Aloka Pravita Nidra Chhadi Utha Jiva Bolo Hari Hari Mukunda Murari Rama Krishna Hayagriva Mukunda Murari Rama Krishna Hayagriva Narsingha Vamana Sri Madhusudana Rajendra Nandana Shyama Nandana Shyama Putana Ghatana Kaitava Shatana Jaya Dasharathi Rama Jaya Dasharathi Rama Jashoda Dulala Govinda Gopala Vrindavana Purandara Yashodanandana Govinda Gopala Vrindavana Purandara Gopri Priya Jana Radhika Ramana Bhuvana Sundara Vara रावणान्तकर माखन तस्कर गोपीजन वस्त्रहारी ब्रजेर राखल गोप वृन्द पाल चित्तहारी वंशीधारी राखल जशोद योगीन्द्र वन्दन श्री नन्दनन्दन ब्रज जन भयहारी श्री नवीन नीरद रूप मनोहर मोहन वंशी बिहारी यशोदानन्दन कंस निषूदन निकुञ्ज रास विलासी कदम्ब कानन रास परायण वृन्दा विपिन निवासी आनन्द वर्धन प्रेम निकेतन फूल सर जोजक काम